evening, it's Monday, 17th of March, and here's what's making news around the world on World News Tonight. Pope's health. Pope Francis seen in hospital chapel amid health concerns. Border restrictions. Trump considers sweeping global travel ban over security fears. Orbital relief. SpaceX capsule arrives at ISS to replace stranded NASA crew.
From Colombo, this is World News Tonight with Prashansa Gunawardana.
Good evening once again. The Vatican has released a photograph showing Pope Francis praying in a hospital chapel, marking the first public image since his hospitalization for pneumonia over a month ago.
The Vatican on Sunday released a photo of the 88-year-old pontiff sitting in quiet prayer inside a hospital chapel at Rome's Gemelli Hospital, offering a hopeful sign amid weeks of concern over his health. In the image, the Pope appears to be breathing unaided, with no visible sign of supplemental oxygen he has relied on during his treatment for double pneumonia. Pope Francis was admitted to hospital on February 14th with a severe respiratory infection. Though officials say his condition is gradually improving, he remains under close medical supervision and has not yet returned to public duties. The Vatican says the Pope has been receiving intensive respiratory therapy along with mobility rehabilitation as he continues to use a wheelchair due to ongoing knee and back pain. The Pope, who celebrated the 12th anniversary of his papacy this week from his hospital suit, has a history of lung complications, having lost part of his lung in his youth. Despite health challenges, the pontiff appears determined to carry his responsibilities. In a symbolic gesture of continuity, he approved a new 3-year global reform process for the Catholic Church, signaling that he remains focused on his spiritual mission.
President Donald Trump is weighing the implementation of a sweeping new travel ban targeting dozens of countries, citing national security concerns and potentially reshaping global movement into the United States.
Widespread demonstrations erupted when President Donald Trump, in his first term, issued a travel ban for 7 majority Muslim countries. And now, the Trump administration is considering a new travel ban. That's according to sources familiar with the matter, and an internal memo which shows 41 countries divided into 3 separate groups. The first group of 10 countries, including citizens from Afghanistan, Iran, Syria, Cuba, and North Korea, would be set for a full visa suspension. The second group of 5 countries, Eritrea, Haiti, Laos, Myanmar, and South Sudan, would face partial visa suspensions. The third group, which includes Belarus and Pakistan, would be considered for a partial visa suspension too, if, according to the memo, their governments, quote, do not make efforts to address deficiencies within 60 days. When Trump took office on January 20th, he issued an executive order requiring intensified security vetting of any foreigners seeking U.S. entry. That order directed several cabinet members to submit by March 21st a list of countries from which travel should be partly or fully suspended.
The United States has vowed to continue airstrikes against Yemen's Houthi rebels until all maritime attacks cease, reinforcing its commitment to safeguarding international shipping lanes in the strategically vital Red Sea region.
Residents gathered at the site of an attack in Yemen on Sunday as bulldozers and volunteers worked to clear debris in search of survivors. The United States launched strikes which the Houthi-run health ministry said killed at least 31 people in what is the biggest U.S. military operation in the Middle East since President Donald Trump took office in January. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said Sunday they would continue until the Iran-aligned Houthis stopped their attacks on Red Sea shipping. He told Fox News, quote, "The minute the Houthis say we'll stop shooting at your ships, we'll stop shooting at your drones, this campaign will end. But until then, it will be unrelenting."
USS Harry Truman.
The Houthis' military spokesperson on Sunday said without offering evidence that the group had targeted U.S. aircraft carrier USS Harry S. Truman and its warships with ballistic missiles and drones in response to the U.S. attacks. The Pentagon did not immediately respond to a request for comment. U.S. Central Command released footage on Saturday showing fighter jets taking off from an undisclosed location and ships firing missiles and hitting targets. The Houthi movement's political bureau described the attacks as a war crime and said its forces were ready to meet escalation with escalation, while Moscow urged Washington to cease the strikes. The Houthis, who have taken control of most of Yemen over the past decade, said last week they would resume attacks on Israeli ships passing through the Red Sea if Israel did not lift a block on aid entering Gaza. They had launched scores of attacks on shipping after Israel's war with Hamas began in late 2023, saying they were acting in solidarity with Gaza. Trump told Iran, the Houthis' main backer, to stop supporting the group immediately. He also threatened to hold Iran accountable.
Ansarullah.
While Iran condemned the U.S. strikes and the commander of its Revolutionary Guard said the Houthis make decisions on their own.
Hundreds of Bangladeshi women marched through the streets of Dhaka protesting against rising violence and calling for strong legal protections in a powerful demonstration that brought national attention to gender-based abuse.
They have been accused of failing to act with sufficient modesty, blamed for their own sexual harassment. Now, Bangladeshi women are mobilising to demand safety. Bangladesh's capital has become a site of daily protests, spurred on by recent cases of sexual violence. On Thursday, vigils were held across Dhaka when an 8-year-old girl died after being raped. Local university students are also angered. A man who was arrested on campus for sexual harassment was quickly released when a mob surrounded the police station and claimed he was acting appropriately to his religious convictions. Some advocates blame the rise in incidents on a rise in hardline movements. The ousted autocratic ruler Sheikh Hasina had long imposed a crackdown on Islamic extremism. Now her successor has to contend with the aftermath. Interim leader Muhammad Yunus has condemned the recent horrific acts, but critics say concern is not enough and that effective measures need to be taken to prevent violence against women.
As temperatures soar in New South Wales, residents face an extreme bushfire threat, prompting urgent warnings from officials amid a prolonged heat wave that is placing severe strain on firefighting services.
The intense heat, with temperatures soaring as much as 12 degrees Celsius above the average, has pushed conditions in Sydney to the near-extreme fire danger levels. By mid-morning, temperatures at Sydney Airport had already climbed well beyond seasonal norms, reaching 29 degrees Celsius, with forecasts predicting a blistering 37 degrees in the city by the afternoon. Authorities warn that the combination of gusty winds, low humidity and dry conditions could create the perfect storm for wildfires. The Rural Fire Service has responded by issuing a total fire ban across large parts of the state, including the Greater Sydney region. This comes as New South Wales nears the end of its official bushfire season, a period that recalls the catastrophic Black Summer fires of 2019 and 2020, which claimed 33 lives and scorched the land equal in size to Turkey. In neighbouring Victoria, firefighters are battling a blaze that destroyed a home on Melbourne's outskirts, with over 200 personnel deployed to contain the threat. Experts say the latest surge in heat and fire danger is a part of a broader trend, with climate change increasingly fueling extreme weather events across the country. Australia's National Science Agency has warned that such conditions are likely to become more frequent and severe in the years ahead.
Let's take a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. Welcome back. President Trump has confirmed plans for a phone conversation with Russian President Vladimir Putin this week. A high-stakes exchange expected to focus on ongoing efforts toward a ceasefire in Ukraine.
U.S. President Donald Trump has said recent negotiations with Russia to end the war with Ukraine are going well. He also expressed confidence that Russian President Vladimir Putin will agree to a ceasefire. According to U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East Steve Witkoff on Sunday, the two leaders are expected to hold phone talks this week. Witkoff met Putin in person in Moscow last week to further discuss a potential ceasefire deal that will finally put a halt to over 3 years of war. The envoy expressed optimism over the phone call, saying that the presidents are going to have a really good and positive discussion this week. He also voiced confidence that a deal would be reached in the coming weeks. Witkoff explained that Washington is also in communication with Kyiv, adding that while the situation is complicated, the gap between the two sides is narrowing. U.S. negotiators are set to meet with counterparts from both Ukraine and Russia during the coming week to further engage in ceasefire talks. Meanwhile, the European Union is set to discuss measures to provide additional weapons to Ukraine worth over $43 billion during its foreign ministers' meeting and a leaders' summit. On Thursday, the military chiefs from countries participating in the Coalition of the Willing will meet in the UK to discuss post-war peacekeeping. While plans for deploying peacekeeping troops to key locations and training Ukrainian forces are being discussed, the process is expected to face several hurdles, as many countries are reluctant to send troops.
Mark Carney has officially assumed office as Canada's new Prime Minister, replacing Justin Trudeau and emphasizing his willingness to cooperate with President Trump during a period of heightened international tension.
Former central banker Mark Carney was sworn in as Prime Minister of Canada on Friday amid threats of U.S. tariffs that could devastate the economy. He succeeds Justin Trudeau, who had a combative and often cold relationship with U.S. President Donald Trump. Carney said he looked forward to speaking with Trump when the moment was right.
We respect the United States. We respect President Trump. We'll both be looking out for our countries, but he knows and I know from long experience that we can find mutual solutions that win for both.
He had this to say about talk from the Trump administration about annexing Canada.
It's crazy.
Friday caps a momentous rise for Carney, who became the first Canadian Prime Minister without any serious political experience. He was previously the head of the Bank of Canada and later the Bank of England. Carney crushed his rivals in a race to become leader of the ruling Liberal Party and replace Trudeau, who spent more than 9 years in office. However, he will likely not be in the post for long. Canadians must head to the polls by October, though Liberal insiders say Carney will call a snap election within the next 2 weeks. If he doesn't, opposition parties say they will unite to bring down the minority Liberal government at the end of March. Opinion polls currently suggest it will be a close race with the official opposition Conservatives, with neither party gaining enough seats to form a majority government. Carney said he would visit London and Paris next week, as Ottawa continues to shore up alliances in Europe.
A massive anti-corruption rally in Belgrade drew over 300,000 people, reflecting widespread frustration with government misconduct and sparking what organizers called a new movement for political transparency and reform.
It's considered to be possibly the biggest outpouring of public discontent here in decades. In Belgrade, hundreds of thousands of demonstrators turned out to protest against Serbia's populist president, Aleksandar Vučić, and what they call his corrupt administration. Saturday marked the climax of over 4 months of student-led, near-daily protests against Vučić across the country. Long-simmering public outrage was triggered by the collapse of a newly renovated railway station roof in Novi Sad that killed 15 people, with many blaming the incident on rampant government negligence and the disrespect of construction safety regulations. Despite some political resignations, Vučić, who's been in power 13 years, has remained defiant.
We understood the message well, and all the officials in power must understand the message when so many people gather. We will have to change ourselves. On the other hand, the majority of citizens in Serbia do not want coloured revolutions or want violence. The citizens of Serbia want to change the government in elections.
While students demand accountability for the disaster and the criminal prosecution of those responsible, Vučić's political opponents are calling for a transitional government to oversee new elections, something the president has strongly ruled out.
A tragic fire at a nightclub in North Macedonia has claimed dozens of lives, with investigators working to determine the cause of the deadly blaze that erupted during a packed event.
Dozens of people have been killed and many more injured after a fire tore through a packed nightclub in the North Macedonian town of Kachani early on Sunday. Video from the event showed a band playing on a stage, flanked by two flares firing white sparks into the air, some of which set the ceiling alight. State news agency MIA reported that police have detained the owner of the club over the incident. And Interior Minister Pancho Toshkovsky said arrest warrants have been issued for several others. The fire caused immediate panic and friends and loved ones were separated as people fled to the exits. TV footage from a local broadcaster showed firefighters at the Pulse nightclub as ambulances rushed from the scene. Pictures showed the club's corrugated iron roof burned through and collapsed in places, with its wooden beams blackened and exposed. North Macedonia's health minister said dozens were hospitalised in Skopje, Kachani and surrounding towns, with local media adding that some were being treated for severe burns, with minors among the injured. Toshkovsky said the blaze, which began at around 3 a.m. local time, was caused by sparks from, quote, pyrotechnic devices. Speaking to the media, he offered his condolences to the families of the victims. North Macedonia's public prosecutor said the incident would be investigated.
Let's take a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. Welcome back. A SpaceX capsule has successfully reached the International Space Station, delivering a replacement crew and allowing two NASA astronauts stranded for months to finally prepare for their long-delayed journey home.
A SpaceX capsule successfully arrived at the International Space Station with the replacements for those two NASA astronauts who've been stuck in space.
SpaceX Crew 10, welcome aboard the ISS.
Crew 10 has had a great journey up here, about 28 hours to get back up to the space station, and I cannot tell you the immense joy of our crew when we looked out the window and we saw the space station for the first time. Returning for a couple of people, very first time for a couple of people. And let me tell you, that is such an amazing journey. You can hardly even put it into words. The ride up on the Falcon 9, orbiting the Earth for the last couple of days, it's been absolutely incredible, and it is something that none of us could do by ourselves. As we've said before, you cannot be great without the greatness of others, and I tell you, the greatness of the ground control teams have really shined through in the last few days getting us up here safely.
The four newcomers will spend the next few days learning the station's ins and outs from Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams. Then it'll be time for those two to end their unexpected 9-month stay in space and finally head home.
Houston, thank you for tuning in this early morning. It was a wonderful day. Great to see our friends arrive. So thank you so much.
Morocco's centuries-old stucco artistry faces extinction as young artisans turn away from the trade, raising fears over the loss of a cherished cultural craft that has adorned homes and mosques for generations.
Each movement must be precise. Patience also essential when practicing this ancestral art, a true symbol of Moroccan architecture. Moroccan stucco is a technique that's endured for centuries, known for its elaborate patterns and elegant finishes. Originating from Marrakesh and other regions of Morocco, this type of plasterwork combines lime and gypsum to create sophisticated wall art. Abdelaziz Tui has been a craftsman for over 30 years and takes great pride in his expertise. But he fears that the mastery of Moroccan stucco may disappear within the next generation. Abdelaziz Tui hopes that Moroccan authorities will make greater efforts to promote stucco craftsmanship so that this art form does not disappear and instead continues to thrive for future generations.
A young athlete with cerebral palsy stunned spectators by clearing the bleachers with a remarkable basketball shot, inspiring thousands and showcasing unwavering determination in the face of physical challenges.
This was the swish heard across western Missouri.
The bleacher clearing moment near Kansas City when Summit Christian Academy senior Patrick McCarty, that's him, number 33, made the basket that had both teams jumping for joy. The Show Me stage showing up in a big way for Patrick and his parents Julie and Michael. Exciting because that was his very first time in the game with the varsity Eagles. Patrick, who was born with cerebral palsy, hasn't been able to play ball, but his passion for sports got him the job as the team's manager.
Who's 33? Does anybody know what 33 is?
And so when the school's senior night rolled around, Coach Tellis Truesdale had this surprise.
We're going to have you be one of our captains tomorrow night. Is that all right?
That's sportsmanship, a shining example of inclusion.
Well, that's a wrap from all of us here at World News Tonight. Stay tuned as Vinod Varnasurya will be shortly joining you with the Nightly Business Report. I'm Prashansa Gunawardana and we leave you with dazzling scenes as the Chicago River shimmers emerald green in a festive tribute to St. Patrick's Day. Thank you for watching us and have a good night.